All right. I have the distinct honor here to interview the one and only Benny Greb. How are you,
Oh,
Benny?
the honor is mine. Thank you very much. I'm good.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm so glad. This is on behalf of CRS, Symbol Resonance System,
Yes.
Mr. Jarl Johansson, and yeah,
Yeah.
he's been great. I
Yeah.
love those things.
It's a clever invention, you know?
It's
It's
super
it's
clever. It's like,
it's I like it. It's I try to have the least amount of stands as possible. And so I mean the two things or the one thing I mainly do is that I always have my crash and my tom, my first rack tom attached to it, and there was always this little when I this little
right.
and when I hit the tom, sometimes a little bit of a crash, and and I love this studio here in Bavaria where they have a nice wooden floor and that light vibrates a little bit as well. So to have that isolated a little bit more, and when you use compression, it's really good. It's just a tiny upgrade that makes a big difference, though.
Yeah, it really does. I noticed a big difference right away when I got mine. But
Yeah.
we're gonna get into that later because I wanted to talk about you, the one and only
Oh.
Benny Greb. Man,
Mm.
I went to your website. Well, obviously, I follow you on Instagram and see you on social media and stuff. But man,
Oh,
your
thanks.
website has everything. So all of you out there that are watching this right now, you go to bennygreb.de and know everything about Benny. And I want to start
Thanks.
first of all with your band, Moving
Yeah.
Parts. What a cool band! Tell me a little
Oh,
bit about that and how that all got started.
I first of all, thanks. You're so generous. Uh, the, I I started to write my own music relatively early on, and then it was kind of in the beginning it was kind of a side thing to like studio work or sideman jobs that I did, and the first one was a little quirky thing where I did an a cappella plus drums kind of thing that was grapefruit, and then I started to play the trumpet before I played the drums actually, and I always loved kind of brass bands or this kind of sound, and I loved New Orleans jazz and second line, and then I wrote an album called Brass Band, very creatively titled, and and then after that, um, and then I asked myself like, man, why didn't that band ever tour so much? Like we played a couple of gigs, but and then I realized, well, oh damn, because I didn't do it. I just picked up the phone, and when someone asked me, I said, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll do this, and I realized, hey, when I have my own project, I'm the one who has to do some booking and some work for it, and make the band available, and it wasn't really a an intact band. It was a couple of studio guys from the NDR big band here, and brass players that I admired, and it was a nice album, but it wasn't really a band. And so after that, I thought, okay, the next album I want to write, I want to maybe even write it together with a couple of guys, and have a band that is this breathing, living thing that I can go on tour with, and things evolve. And I wanted to have great improvisers in the band, and also great band leaders in their own right, to understand, kind of to bring their input in. And I got to know this guitarist called Chris Montague from England, from the UK. And oh, that was a bad English imitation. As good
You
as a
forgot
German
to
guy
say
can do.
bloody from the bloody
Bloody.
UK.
Oh, mate. All right, mate. Um, and I was asked to play in a band that was called Blue Touch Paper by a UK composer called Colin Towns. He did a lot of film score stuff and had a very like weather reporty kind of band. And we toured with that and did two albums. And normally I'm pretty disciplined on stage at sound checks and stuff, and I don't want to go on anyone's nerves. But with him it was impossible, because he was always like, "Hey, do you know this one?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we played together a lot at sound checks and stuff, and just had so much fun, like connecting. And I thought like, oh man, I gotta play with him. And in the beginning, he knew someone, wonderful keyboard player by the name Kit Downs, and then we made this trio. These were the first two albums, and Kit is now gone to do other things, but we now have sometimes Yannick Wizdala on bass, and sometimes, most of the time, probably Fatty, Mr. Christopher Hargreaves. And it's just a fun band. It's really like a home for my ideas, and really a playground. Whenever we get together, it's just, yeah, who knows what happens, and it's really, really great.
Yeah, I checked out a few of your band videos, and man, it seems like there's definitely a groove foundation to it. You know, with you back there laying down a groove, but then everyone has a opportunity to really stretch out and be musical.
Yeah.
So that's a real, it's refreshing to
You
hear
mean
that
that I'm
again,
not musical? Is that what you're saying? The other ones are stretching out of me?
Quite the contrary, my man. No, it's just great. It's because groove, I think those two things exist simultaneously, and I think a lot of musicians have forgotten about the groove and then being able to stretch out and be musical and really express themselves. You know, it seems like you go one way or another. You know, it's like all chops, no groove, all groove, no chops. But you guys seem to have both of those things going on, and it all intertwines together beautifully. So
yeah,
cool band, moving parts.
Yeah, we always try to walk that line because I like clarity, I like backbeat, I like groove stuff, and if it's not too like crazy jazzy kind of, but I also like improvisation a lot, and I also want to be free enough to go wherever we want to go. So it can get crazy, but I always try to it's always this stretching and walking the line kind of. It's the same with melody and form, and so there's always this kind of pushing and pulling.
Yeah, well, man, such a great band. If you guys haven't checked it out, Moving Parts, Benny Greb's band, great trio, man, incredible. The keyboard player, that guy's a monster.
Yeah, he's amazing. He played like in the first installation of the band, like he played a bass and with the right hand like keyboard, so to speak. And when we mixed the live album, we, you know, like you do when you mix it, you go solo and you solo the bass thing, you try to EQ that, you solo this. So we soloed the bass and we were mixing it, and then I thought, like, man, this is some of the best like bass playing I ever heard. Like it was really super tight and but super melodic and free, but it locked in so nicely, had great melodic ideas, and all the bass players that I really love, like Paul McCartney, or, you know, like that can lock in and have a fundament, but still are melodically interesting and beautiful, you know. So it's not just a rhythmical thing. And he also had like these elements, and I was like, man, the focus on the bass line itself is amazing. And then we realized the moment that we soloed was his solo while he was soloing with the right hand, and I was like, this is incredible. So while he was, I think crazy, for me as a drummer, I think he would have focused on this, but no, this was all there. And so I absolutely love the guy. Kid Downs, he got a deal with ECM and Manfred Eicher to record some solo stuff with him. So he's
so great.
He's doing his solo stuff now. Yeah,
so great. And, you know, man, I mean, I could spend all day talking to you, but I just want to just brush over everything with you because you got so much going on, man. Again, if you go to Benny Greb's website, bennygreb.de, everything is there. And
thanks.
The first thing that pops up is your book.
Oh, yeah.
Effective Practicing for Musicians. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about, because that's what a cool book, you know.
Tell us
about that.
It only took me 7 years to write it. It's very quick. I'm very fast.
That's it?
It was like no, I see it as kind of a trilogy. I have a book that is mainly about repertoire, or a DVD that was called The Language of Drumming, which was really about like the repertoire of what to play, what can you play, how can you organize like ideas and get flexible with it. Then I had The Art and Science of Groove, which was more about like, okay, how, with what quality do you play it, with time and groove and this kind of things. And the third biggest piece that I was always teaching was how to organize, how to get there, so to speak. So there's a lot of information out there. I think many people have the problem that you get the feeling that all the solutions are out there, so to speak. But how do you get from A to B, and what is important and what is maybe not important, and where are the priorities for each and every one. And it seems to be so individual, and it is, but there is a process that helps you to decide what is the next thing and what's the most important thing. And by deciding alone, like, okay, what is important, what is not important, it takes away overwhelm and confusion, and which is the first super important step, because we could do everything and try to do everything. We can't, but then we do everything a little bit, and if we try to do too many things, we can't go deep as we usually must, like with the instrument that we are playing. Not all of it, or there's not much there that where we can like scrape the surface and then we get a result. We have to spend some time with it and focus and go back to it again and again. And so it's basically in three parts. The first part is a couple of principles that govern practicing and effective practicing, like the selection, like analyzing yourself to be like, okay, what are my strengths and weaknesses? And some people, and what do you want to do? You know, what is your vision? Kind of. Some people say, I don't know that vision. And the thing is, there are a couple of like question, a real systematic behind there that kind of peel the onion and kind of help to find that out. Because usually we don't have to set priorities. We have them, and then we just have to kind of act accordingly and find out what those are. And so there are a couple of principles to govern. Another one is that, as I also already mentioned, that everyone made the experience that if you do too many things at once, you don't really feel that you make progress. So limitation is key. I talk about discipline, which for many is a non-word or like a bad word, but you can really use it for yourself, and it doesn't have to be the authoritarian kind of discipline kind of thing. It is can really be your friend to help you to get where you want to go. Yeah.
Whenever I think of that word discipline, I always think of martial arts. You know, my uncle's well, he's retired now, but he was a 9th Dan Kempo karate instructor, and he always talked about discipline and how that's important. And if you master your craft, well, specifically in martial arts, if you're a master, if you master it, you'll never have to use it.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, wow, how could I apply that as a drummer? You know, like how could I absorb all of this information and take in all these drummers and these styles, but only use what is useful. Right. And I think that's what you're saying with what you're teaching, just like these principles and these disciplines and what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, taking the time to balance it out and make the best of it. Yeah. Yeah. Man, and in martial arts, there is also this thing like when people like finish a certain time of study, they always then circle back to the basics again and then build it up again. So they are always also the higher they get in mastery or in a degree of mastery, they then always touch base with the fundamentals again and kind of respect that. So I think that's also a great picture for us to be like, oh, I'm done with timing. It's like, oh, really? Are we ever done with timing? Exactly. Man, so you guys got to check out that book too, man, because I saw the cover and I thought, okay, I got to get this book. Oh, thanks. Because I for one, I haven't practiced in years because I work so much and that's part of the practice. But then, sometimes I'll bust out the pad and the George Lawrence Stone book. Yeah. And realize, oh my God, my hands are completely out of shape. And so, there's that mental struggle of, well, do I really need to practice? Yes, I do. But that is another story. Speaking of another story, I think. Here's another thing I discovered about you. Got your own signature snare drum. I do, yes. How cool is that? Yeah, I really like it. Sono was nice enough to listen to me and help me with that. And is that a Sonar snare drum? Yes, that's a Sonar snare drum. Now there are two. There are in two flavors. It started with a 13 by 5.75. Ooh, very German, very specific. Like a beach snare drum with
it's super easy to tune. It's just a nice work animal. And then we upgraded it with a little bit of nicer design, nicer mechanics, nicer lugs, and we gave it also. It's now also out in a brass version, which has a little bit more of the clawing and the warm kind of metal stuff, which is super nice too. And I was allowed to design, because I always wanted internal dampening, but I always wanted it in the right place and in terms of like that I could apply it and in a unique way. So I designed an internal dampener that we call the Monorail Dampener. Yeah, we can go into that, but I could talk about that for hours. But how much time?
Yeah, well, especially a sonar drum. I mean, as we all know, sonar drums are just they're so well crafted.
Yeah,
and I mean, just pick up a bass drum of a sonar, and you'll know. It's like, okay, there's everyone else, and then the sonar is like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, they used to be the most heavy ones because of their. They had this metal thing on the bass drum. They had this rail, and that made it very heavy. And I mean, they have some very thin kits now that are bassier and also lighter actually. But yeah, I mean, the build quality is great. The sound quality is great. I never had any issues with it. I really love the guys.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool. I've always wanted to have my own signature snare drum, but then I realized the ones I love are the ones that are out there that everybody uses. There isn't a specific sound that I'm going for. It's like it's already been done.
Right.
So I feel like, well, what's the use?
And you're well equipped maybe already. You probably have many snare drums. And
my wife calls them the other women.
Yep.
That's how many drums.
Or it's your
have.
shoe collection.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't know. Her shoe collection might outdo my drums. But man, and speaking of which, outdoing, this is something I wish I was there for, and I wish there was no such thing as a pandemic. And I wish there was easy travel again, and I would just jump on a plane to go to drum camp.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, and with who?
Yes. I started to do these drum camps like over a decade ago. They are my preferred way of teaching now, because I realized that I can't be there for a student every week or something because I'm traveling so much. But I found these nice locations here and there, and I then make these very immersive couple of days where we just we all spend time together there. We eat together, and we talk drums the whole day, and it's usually a blast. And people come from all over the world. I did some in New York. I did some in all over the world. But my home base is basically here in Germany, and we have this great location. And last year was the first time where I asked my good friend and mentor Jojo Mayer to join me. And
great Jojo
he was
Mayer.
He was a little bit hesitant at first, and I think I talked him into it, or he was great. He accepted nicely enough, and he liked it too. So I got him to do another one, which we will do in 2 weeks here. So it's really, we're planning the logistics right now and everything, and we'll have people from all over the world. And I'm really grateful that we can do it again, because of course we all lived through the limitations and restrictions because of the pandemic, but I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be good.
Now, if someone wanted to attend that, where can they go to get tickets? And
that's already sold out, but
it is?
Wow. But whenever there are new camps, it's always on the website, of course, and I post it on Instagram, and then when you're quick enough, and you're all invited, and I would love to see you there if you're listening and watching.
That is so cool. And what do you guys go over in terms of like the drum camp? What is it that you guys are teaching?
What we're doing is we're usually asked as soon as it's sold out and we have the participants list, so to speak, we contact them and we ask them beforehand. It's like, hey, what is it that you want to do? So we can prepare and we can start right away. Normally with camps, like people go there and it's like, okay, what should we do?
Yeah, right.
and we were really like, okay, let's get our stuff together, and and then we are ready to go. So it is very it can be anything. I mean, we usually make a mind map in the beginning and then say like, okay, what we want you to leave here with the feeling that we definitely did what you wanted to do, and you got out of us what you wanted, and out of this experience what you wanted. So I really see myself as kind of like, of course I have things that I definitely want to touch on and tell people about, but mainly I want them to feel that I do what they wanna hear, and so that's what we will do. And I mean, for Jojo, usually people, of course, ask about his mindset and his technical ability, which is insane, and also his role as an artist and band leader. For me, it's usually more the time and groove stuff and the repertoire stuff from my educational products. But then we have a discussion round in the evening where it goes into space, where like Jojo will mention something, or someone will have a question, and so it can go wherever. And we have a lot of time, and a lot of the stuff happens then in the evening with a little wine, or like after lunch,
the most
or something.
Important time.
Yeah. And it's just great. It's a very intense time, and it's usually very sad in the end, like because you really get to know each other very intensely, because you spend like the whole time with each other, and then in the end it's like, oh, there are a lot of hugs, and but it's great. I'm always super filled up and happy after this.
I was having this conversation with a guitar player friend of mine, and he was telling me the difference between drummers and guitar players, where drummers were like a big tribe, and we come together, and share. And but like you said, by the end we're hugging and crying, and because there's this family feeling, this tribal gang,
Yeah.
Guitar players are like, hey, what kind of pedal is that? And they're like, I'm not going to show you.
I have a theory about this. I think it comes because there is a kind of a natural selection of like drummers wanting to become drummers because of the role that a drummer has. We usually have a more diplomatic and fundamental and kind of keeping the band together role. And I think this instrument attracts people that are like that. They are community kind of people. And that's why I think there is also the drum community as such a thing, because like singers or guitarists, there's a lot of this kind of like, it's about, I want to stand in the foreground and I want to be the guy in the front. And that usually, and of course not for all of them, but I think the proclivity is that it more goes towards me and not like, okay, how can we do this thing? And I think that's why we are also the guys who drive everyone home and have the practice room and like all this kind of stuff. We're community guys, and I like that.
Yeah, it's such a great community, and like you said, you just can't get enough of it. Once it ends, you don't want it to end, because we're all learning from each other, and just as you can learn from the beginner all the way up to the advanced, to the master, so there's this, you're always learning and you're never stuck, because it's always evolving.
Yeah.
And well, that's great. And so let's look forward to the next drum camp. Hopefully everything will be opened up, and we could all get to your next drum camp after this one with Jojo soon.
Thanks.
So last but not least, before we go, we got to talk about, of course, CRS.
Yes.
And we'll touch back on what we talked about at the very top of this interview. You were saying the CRS you're using because you had a weird tom kind of rumble, and it was causing something weird with the cymbal. Let's get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I just took it as a given, like, or I almost thought like, okay, there's nothing you can do about that. But and I think there has been a lot done already with hardware to kind of have the rubber feet and blah, 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 blah. But there's still something that happens right before the cymbal, where it's, I think, the best place to kind of isolate, because I think the rubber feet are great to not send it in the floor too much. But then if you mount something on the cymbal stand, on top, then that is kind of connected to that. So that's the problem with my first rack tom, that kind of any vibration that comes from a crash cymbal or like anything that you mount on there kind of gets a little bit or excites a little bit the rack tom, and the other way around. And again, if you want to save on like stands, and of course not put everything in their own kind of stand, it's just a great solution, and it really makes a difference. Sometimes acoustically, people think it's just like it's not that big of a deal, but I think everyone records now, whether they record for an Instagram video or live shows are so easy to record now, or you can record at home, like your own album and stuff. And as soon as you have the transients and the nice signals and stuff, and you want to apply like a little bit of compression, and I love compression. I love, when it glues everything together, all that little noises and these little standing waves and stuff, they all get louder. So it's so great. And I think people sometimes don't know what they're missing when they can get a clear sound from all the instruments and not like too much bleed from everything. So and I think it's a great little invention. It's a tiny thing that I take it on tour with me. Like when I get other drum sets, rental kits and stuff, I have like 2 or 3 of them in my bag.
Slap them on the existing stands and you're ready to go.
Just put it on there, and I think it's great. And I really wish the guy all the best. We had a couple of phone calls in the very beginning, and I really was like, yeah, man, this is good stuff.
Yeah, Jarl's a genius, man. He came up with that, and I just, I took one apart to examine what was going on, and it's like a shock absorber, like on a car. Yeah. And to have that for a cymbal stand, and all of us drummers, we use different cymbals at different weights, especially heavy cymbals. I notice it works great for that, and really thin sounding cymbals, like when you hit the kick drum, you'll hear it vibrate. With the CRS unit, it doesn't do that. Yeah. So that's really cool. And just so I again, it's just one of those inventions where it's like, okay, this is not a useless invention. This actually works,
Yeah. And that's the thing when you say like, oh, thin cymbals and stuff, you want your cymbals to be, or you want your instruments, when you want them to be sensitive, we always think like, oh, it's great when they have a lot of dynamics and they start to do their sound immediately, or you can play them with your hands and whatever. But of course we don't want it like when we don't even look at it and we want to play another instrument and it's like, hey, what are you doing? So it gets a little bit more out of control. We want to, when we play it, to then make the sound and to please be quiet when we don't. So so it's great for that.
Yeah. And do you use it for any toys like cowbells or tambourines or anything like that?
I don't have much of that on my kit, but my girlfriend is a percussionist, and now I turned her on to it. And she was like, because she was playing this tambourine thingy and then these other things. And I mean, it makes a huge difference if everything is mounted on one rack, and you shake this and it's like,
right.
And then you put the CRS in between, and it's gone. It's quiet.
Right.
It's amazing.
It truly is amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to give us and tell us? Anything coming up?
I'm just grateful for listening. You did a great job. I have stuff on my website, on Instagram. It's all there, and check out the Gap Click app. I brought out a nice app that can do a nice gap click and some offbeat clicks and stuff. I wanted to do this also for years. I spoke about this already like 10 years ago and was teaching it always, but now there's a really intuitive app and it just costs like $3, and it's my favorite practicing tool. Like it's called Gap Click. It's available at the App Store and also on Android and stuff. So if you want everyone listening, you can check this out as well. But I'm just grateful that you interviewed me here. I would have had a couple of questions for you too, but we'll do that next time. We you know what? We'll switch it around. The next time I will interview you.
All right, done. That's a deal.
Great.
That's a deal.
Let's do that. I'll write the email.
We'll make that happen. Well, listen, Benny, thank you so much again. And on behalf of CRS and Jarl Johansson, thank you. And thank you, Jarl. Thank you, Benny. And man, good luck with the upcoming clinic.
Thank you.
Drum camp. And tell
Thanks.
Jojo I said, hey, I got to get him on here too.
Man, and I hope we can see each other again soon.
I know. We will. We will. I'm going to give you a big hug, and I'm going to hand you a sparkling water and a coffee on the other hand.
Great. That sounds good.
All right, my brother.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.